and then the external aspect of logistics. And it talks about the types, that's the procurement, distribution, after sales, construction, and then the digital phase. Thank you.
All right, so who else?
Yes, I think I also jotted something down. The definition of logistics, that is movement of materials from origin to the consumer. Yes. And then the types of logistics, and that is the liquid, and then food items and animals and materials. And then the elements of the logistics, that is warehousing, inventory, transportation, materials handling, packaging, information flow. And I think this internal and external logistics was also mentioned. Yeah. And the internal was said to be within the factory, and then the external is materials coming out from the factory. And then the types, this is procurement through distribution, and then finally to after sales. I think these are the very points I jotted. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I mean, you got something? I know you joined very late. Are you there?
Doc, please, I was not able to hear anything. The moment I joined, it was at the latter part of it. So
okay, but you take note of the points that your colleagues they've expressed. I believe you've taken notice of it. Very important. Yes. This video encapsulates everything we'll be doing step by step. So it's important you get that perspective. So let's quickly go into the first outcome, which is to analyze and critically evaluate a range of logistics practices applied across different industries and geographical situations. So the whole concept of logistics, logistics is a broader term that reflects. Yes.
Please, before you proceed, may I ask some short questions, sir?
Please go ahead, please.
Yesterday, you gave us a brief definition for logistics.
Yeah.
Just a minute. You said it's the wheel on which supply chain moves.
Exactly, yeah.
So with this definition that we just had, as a movement of material from origin to the consumer, how can we blend the two together?
So it even makes it easier, places it well. The movement of material from where? That's from where?
Origin.
Origin. So the origin of the material to the consumer, right?
Okay.
So if you look at the whole supply chain, process, there's the upstream, there is the operations, and then the downstream. So
yes, sir.
You would now realize that supply chain adds the upstream processes, okay, to logistics. So we are saying that logistics starts at the point where the company starts doing the movement. So for instance, if it's the role of the company to pick the product, the raw materials from the supplier, okay, that becomes the first point of moving what? The materials. Whatever they would deploy to achieve to ensure that the materials are moved to the factory, that is the starting point. But in sourcing for the supplier, that doesn't become part of the logistics process. You understand? Interacting with the supplier and then sourcing the product. Movement comes in when now that has been sourced. So if you look at supply chain very well, supply chain really picks the upstream and the downstream, right?
Okay.
And then the downstream is where the customer is. In fact, there are things that we have to do before the customer accepts that he is going to buy the product or not, right? That falls under marketing and marketing and retail. There's even the public relations that we do. Those activities are all subsumed into supply chain, right? It is not part of logistics, right? Okay. And then if you come into the whole planning of the organization, whole strategy, there's an overarching supply chain strategy that superintends on the logistics strategy, all right? And that strategy has to look at the whole chain, the integration of the process step by step to ensure that there's visibility in the whole supply chain. That is not the work of logistics. So logistics now become the wheels, okay? That moves supply chain from stages to what? Stages. We are saying that because even at the point we are sourcing from the suppliers, we are saying that after sourcing, you still need logistics to move the product, isn't it? Yes. You still need, you still need warehouse to house those products. You get it? So then logistics now become the driving wheels. And we are even saying that it is even the lifeblood of the organization. Because without that, nothing moves. Without that, we are stagnant. So that is the extent to which logistics is that important. That now you, after going through this presentation, you realize that the other school of thought that even taught that logistics replaces a supply chain as a traditionalist, okay? The unionists believe that supply chain rather subsume traditionalists. And then there's those who thought that they were replacing logistics, supply chain with logistics. And then the intersectionists who believe that they are intertwined, that logistics in itself is not in its entirety, but it intersects with what supply chain. But the world view, the modernist view about logistics and supply chain is just that logistics is an activity that is embedded in supply chain, because supply chain goes beyond just movement of what product or movement of activities or ensuring that services are delivered. It goes beyond that. And that's where supply chain now superintends over logistics. So that's the whole thing. But there's an argument that is in there, still the academic and the industry space about who is who in logistics and supply chain. But the fact of the matter is supply chain was a term that emerged in the 21st century. And what it does is just to integrate all the processes of most organizations, not really looking at, we have disintegrated, systems. HR is doing what they have to do. Operations is doing what they have to do. You have the manufacturing floor, they are doing what they have to do. Marketing and distribution, they are doing PR, they are doing other things. Procurement are doing that. So what is the essence of supply chain? Supply chain means that we just want to look at the organization as one unit, and we just want to monitor the flow of activities from the sources of material. So we produce the material and then sell to the customer. And after having done that, we are not done. We also do a follow-up with the objective to retain customers so that we will be able to get delighted customers who will be customers that we can use to do our projections. In other words, we'll use leverage on these customers to get other customers. So just presenting value to the customer, it doesn't end there. Customer retention, that is a marketing responsibility. They are all deployed within the chain. Because if a customer is not kind of satisfied, it wouldn't drive the demand. You get it? And supply chain is concerned about even at that level. Issues of distribution, they are interested. We just want to ensure that we produce a product and it gets to the customer at a minimum cost. You get it? So that
so in the broader view, the supply chain is ahead of the logistics.
It is. It is not being ahead. I don't want that to say it's ahead. It's a component of logistics, right? No. Logistics is a component.
It's a component of supply chain. Yes, that's what I want.
But it is the biggest of all components of supply chain because logistics then, permeates all the activities. In fact, it is seen in every activity in the organization. Logistics is seen in every department of the organization. It is the one of the concepts that is more active in every processes that the organization, undertakes. And that is why, to a large extent, people think that logistics, supply chain is rather in logistics, because you cannot move. You cannot move. Supply chain cannot move without logistics.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yes.
It's blood. You understand? That's what flows within the veins of supply chain. Without it, supply chain cannot survive. And you should know that logistics, the term was already there. In some, it was the military that started using logistics because they needed that for their wars and other things. They needed to deploy logistics, i.e., those people who were on the forefront of war needed to eat, they needed clothes, they needed other water, they needed ammunitions. In fact, these ammunitions and bomb and bullets that were being supplied, that is where the concept of logistics emanated, okay? That they will have enough of these things to fight the enemy. And that is why logistics is an old term. And it is more akin to the war front, okay? So if you go to the Ghana Army and all that, those who are in charge of logistics, it's not a joke, right? Because he keeps stocks of the bullets. He keeps stocks of, even in the police, those who give out bullets to, and then the arms to people, they would have to account for it. I hear the police, when you even shoot a bullet, you have to account for it, what you use it for, okay? So these things are, they were more in the military. And that is why logistics is seen as one of the biggest components of the supply chain process. And it is actually not a joke, okay? So if that is okay, then we can continue.
Yes, okay there was this argument that the supply chain manager and then the logistics manager, in terms of ranking, who is ahead? That's why I was asking this question.
Yeah. Okay, so let's put it this way. Now, supply chain, the concept supply chain has, it's like the whole thing, like learning how to drive. Do you know that driving is now a requirement? Okay.
Yes, it is. Exactly.
Like,
in some
like any young guy, when you come up, you need to learn how to drive, right?
Yeah.
It's like a kind of a requirement. If I see you and I ask you, do you know how to drive? And you say no, it's like I'll be surprised, because I know this should be a prerequisite, like having a passport. It should be a prerequisite as a Ghanaian to have a passport, or having the Ghana card. All right, you need to have it. That is the extent to which supply chain has become. That every business executive should have taken a certificate program or something in supply chain. See, if you take the Fortune 500 companies, that the top 500 companies in the world, all their CEOs are taking a supply chain course. In fact, what is actually happening is that, and it is that to that extent, because you could have the supply chain that acumen that will help you understand how systems work, to understand how processes work. So the logistics manager that person needs supply chain, knowledge, all right, or expertise to be able within his logistics managing the logistics of the organization, will apply the supply chain principles, okay. In order that person becomes very efficient. You hardly have some companies having a supply chain manager. It has become a new term, that because then there's some sort of a problem with most organizations because of the way organization is structured, okay, the organogram. If you're having a supply chain manager, then the supply chain manager is the one who reports, administratively to the CEO, right? But works laterally or parallelly with all departmental heads. All right. So for instance, his responsibility is to ensure that there is integration of all the processes in the organization. For instance, we want to employ, right? We want to employ some expert to handle maybe our machine. Maybe you call them machinist, right? So the supply chain manager is not looking at just the profile of the machinist, okay, for employment. The supply chain manager is advising the HR that the skill set we have, okay, the skill gap we have is machinist, okay? This is what we have. But then he has gone through the process to identify other things. For instance, customers have complained that the carton section that is not cutting very well. And the supply chain manager has identified that problem, not as a problem that has to do with the equipment itself, but it has to do with the expertise that you need. So we are not just taking any machinist. We are taking a machinist that has a specialty in cutting. You get it? But the HR manager will not know that, because the supply chain manager has been able to liaise with the production manager to be able to know that this is actually the gap. So for instance, there was an audit that was conducted and a customer complaint that came. They went through the processes to connect to it, and the issue was that the machine is okay, but there is a problem with what? The person who is cutting, all right? It's not cutting it to be that steep that we expected. Now, another scenario. This time, we have the machinist. The person has the expertise, but the machine is not what? Cutting the way it's expected to cut. So the machine, the operations manager's interest is to buy a specific machine that cuts that way. But the question is, do the machinists that we have currently have the competency to work with this new machine they are buying? You see the skill gap. HR will not be able to know this. He knows that the person has already been employed. Is there a need for training? Okay. So these kind of gaps that happens in the organization, that is what creates the problem, because each department is seen as autonomous, doing their own thing. So what the supply chain manager does is he comes in and integrates the process so that when there's a fault, we can trace it even to the fact that the HR didn't employ the right person. Not just the fact that the fault came, you understand? There is a tracer studies done to identify what caused that problem, rather than placing it at the doorstep of what? The operations manager. But do you get the whole thing?
Yeah.
So you see the role of the supply chain manager.
Yes.
Right? So if I have that skill set, and I'm telling you, we are getting to a stage where most organizations will require every manager, right, to take a course in supply chain. You get it? To the extent that they will now understand how processes work, and they can easily integrate their own processes within their department. You get it? And be ready to integrate to the larger process outside their department. Okay, so if you take the procurement department, for instance, some other companies have, for instance, they have the materials manager. And if you go to the materials manager, they have under it a senior manager called the inventory manager. Okay. And then within the inventory manager, you have an officer who does receiving of some specific product, maybe in charge of crude oil, right? That's what the person does. Another person does receipts of maybe they are in the mining industry, for instance. Another person does the receipt of what? The raw gold, that is what? Bars that are mined and cut. So they receive the inventory, right? And then there's another person that the battery that they buy, that person receives it. You see how complicated it's now becoming. So in one department, this is what is actually happening. Okay, if we go to the port industry, for instance, where Sami works, Sami is in charge of what? Maybe he's a gatekeeper, receiving. But if you are dealing with a multi-terminal that is receiving, for instance, about in a month, they do about 10,000, TUs. TUs is 20 feet equivalent unit, okay, for the box. So They are doing 10,000 TUs. But then because there are some specific suppliers that we are dealing with, we are keeping different stacks for those suppliers. So stack is not classified based on the type of cargo anymore, but we are looking at consignee. You get it? So you are getting a terminal officer in charge of a particular stack, right? Maybe that is for ref, those doing reefer containers for one big customer. So you realize that the inventory in the procurement section where we have this head, when they come to the inventory, we could have some companies could have as much as 100 officers who are all in charge of a specific inventory that just for receipts. Okay, you could have those who delivers, who are just for delivery. That if the containers, they come and then the guy receives it, he is responsible for, if those containers are ready to be shipped to the port, whether empty or laden. That, when I say empty means empty container, laden means it has a product in it. You will still have, somebody who is in charge specifically, for that. And I just want you to have this thing in mind. Let's go to the Electricity Corporation of Ghana, ECG, where our famous Frank works with them. So let's talk about meters, right? We buy meters from, various, today we are installing these high-tech meters. And we receive these meters, but because we buy them for specific needs. We might want to manage the inventory of the meters based on geographical locations. Frank, are you with me? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here, please.
Yeah,
yes,
based
sir.
on geographical locations, right? So Tema West and East, you have one officer in charge of what? Meter inventory management. Who is managing for Tema East? Another one managing for Tema West. You get it? And when they look at the geographical distribution and see that there are some places that are highly developed and there are more houses springing up, then there's a need to have more meters. So this guy receives, and he should be able to account for meters that has been what? Been issued. So this guy is doing that. Let's talk about transformers. There could be somebody in charge of managing just the transformers, okay? Those inventory. And that's when they've done some sort of prediction to know, based on, you are in Ghana and the rains and then people misbehavior, you're able to predict the lifespan of what a transformer. So they keep stock of them. I know, don't keep stock. Frank, do you keep stock? You wait until
we keep stock. We have a large stock.
So they have a stock of it. So
a large stock of transformers.
So they have this stock of it. So you need somebody to manage that inventory. Do you get it? Now, all these things I've talked about falls under what? Logistics. You get it? They all fall under what? Logistics. Even though we are not seeing it as that in our organization, but they are all part. Inventory management is part of logistics. And anytime we have to move it, we need transport. When we get there, we need labor to just carry it. The ECG poles, okay? We keep inventory of them. They are all what? Part of logistics. Are we getting the whole thing? So yeah. You realize that where you work, what you see as not logistics, as it were, probably will be the integration and the flow of information. You understand? Those are the things that probably you might not see as logistics. But almost everything that happens in the organization will fall under logistics. Another example, ECG does the service, right? So if I report a fault, that is a fault here, and then they go to their, maybe there's an office, a station here, there. Once I report, they pick, I mean, they give you a ticket number or whatever, and then they deploy staff to come here. The staff are coming with what? One, the ECG vehicle, the maintenance vehicle. They have, yes, based on what they have in mind to be the fault, because they have a dashboard and they would have seen on the dashboard that something is off. So they have an idea what is really off, whether there's a cable that has stripped, or there's a high voltage that has passed, or the transformer is not working. So they pick those quick wins, materials, put them in their testing. So the logistics they are sending to the site, watch this. They are sending labor, which is part of logistics. Have you seen it? They are sending, spiners and then toolbox, which are part of what? Logistics. And the vehicle itself that they are using is also part of what? Logistics. Do you get the whole thing? Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
So if until now you were underrating logistics, logistics management, and there is that kind of argument between you and the supply chain, logistics is a huge enterprise. You get it? We brought supply chain because we wanted to integrate the processes. So that is it. Do you have any more questions? I believe this makes, does it? I want to hear your voices. Does it? Does it make sense?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. It does.
So can you now, with this understanding, can you each give me an example of like what I gave, like reporting faults and the logistics that will be required to fix the problem in your organization? Can you cite an example? Can anyone cite an example? Hello?
Hi, we are pondering.
No, but I have just given you an example. I've even used your company or what you do to cite an example. So just give me a little example, something that happens. Maybe you can talk about going to the mines to, with this Galamsey issue, going there to cause an arrest, what will require. Frank can tell me when they want to install a new transformer at a certain location, what will require, the kind of logistics that will be required. And
yes,
then Same will then tell me that they are going to receive maybe about 10,000 TUs. I don't know the capacity of Amaris. Amaris, what is the total capacity of Amaris, Same?
4,000 TUs, please.
4,000 TUs. So let's say that they are expecting 4,300 TUs. Okay, so what is required, to be able to accommodate that? Okay, so who would want to start?
Yeah, for my place like this, in terms of maybe deploying personnel and a vehicle or whatever to maybe a mine accident, a landslide or whatever, we are looking at, it's not all the vehicles that you are assigned just to go. It's not any driver at all. Hello?
Yeah, we are here.
So you look at among the vehicles that the one that is fit, that can make up the speed, and the driver that had the skill in terms of speed, how the experience enough, and that's the kind of logistics you provide for them to be able to go. And then also we have a task force operation. It's not every driver that can operate such, even though you can drive. The nature of the field work or field driving, you need people who have the skills to do that. And so that's what I look at in my area when I'm deploying logistics.
Okay. Okay. All right. So you account for the fuel they will use?
Yes.
And then the return of it?
Yes. Impress, whatever. I have to fix all those things in.
So now you see that the impress also becomes part of the logistics. Have you seen it?
Yes.
Even the impress you give to them become part of the logistics. Because
yes.
those are the things they need to execute the task.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So Frank, do you have anything to say from your end?
Yes, I think when it comes to a fault that has arisen and then there's the need for fixing of a transformer, the maintenance gang, we call them gang, the team, they come to the warehouse to requisition for the material, that is the transformer and its accessories.
So let me ask a question. Let me ask a question. So when there is an emergency, what kind of procurement, what kind of requisition process do you go through when there is an emergency? Like you have a call from the castle. Then I mean, the Flagstaff House that a place has gone on. The president is asking what has happened. So what is the procedure?
Yes, with the we have an austerity measure that we have been taking. We at times don't try as much as possible to let our bureaucracy be known in the system. So we use an emergency system, where they will come and then we quickly have to give them the materials to go and then and fix whatever fault it is, and then perfect the system after they have completed.
Okay. Okay. All right. So you agree that with all this process, the human resource that you are deploying, the vehicle that you are deploying, the fuel you have to you have to give to them, the toolbox, okay, the transformers, the accessories that come with the transformers, okay, they are all part of the logistics that you are deploying.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
To deal with that problem. So here, supply chain's role is to make sure that there is an integration between your department and the department that has the human resource, right? So for instance, the human resource department has designated some staff to do some specific roles. But when there is this emergency, how do the other departments, they connect through to understand that the process has to work this way, to understand that when there's an emergency, the operations, the maintenance guy can quickly call the HR and tell the HR that the 6 guys you put at the other terminal to be doing maintenance, we will need 3 of them to join this team immediately. And for that matter, that work they are going to do is an emergency. So their pay rate or their extra load is going to be, if it was 20 cedis, it's going to raise to 100 cedis for each day. And that you need to prepare an extra overtime sheet for them. Did you get the whole thing?
Yeah.
Yes,
that
sir.
Integration is there. But if that is the supply chain guy is not there, what is going to happen is that the guys will go and do the work anyway, but they will not be paid. Do you get it?
Yeah.
They will not be paid. They might even opt not to go because they will say that this is what they've asked us to do. And then you see 2 departments fighting and then the job suffering. You get it? But the supply chain allows that integration. Then there is visibility in the system, okay? And it makes the work flows very well. It makes the materials, the information, the people, everything flows very well. Sammy, do you have anything to say?
Yes, Doc. Please,
Yeah.
mine has to do with receiving a full unit, a leading unit from maybe a client. So when the container approaches our end, then immediately the first thing we'll do is that there are 30 clerks who do the checks on the container and then check if there is a damage on it. And it's stated on their waybill, the accompanying waybill that the driver came with. And then he brings it to our end. We input it. We have a terminal operating system, so we input it into it, and then quickly it reflects at the planning side of it. So already there is an operator who has mounted a reach stacker in the yard. So what happens is that after it has been entered, or the details that was on the driver's waybill has been entered into the system, it appears at the planning end, who then advises the operator to discharge at a particular location. So a restacker is required to do that discharge. After that, and then there are times where a container needs to weigh before discharge. So quickly, we have a weigh bridge there that we direct the driver to move towards. So after that, then the driver approaches the operator, and then the container is discharged. And so that is with that is with receiving of full units. But then if it's going to port and then the customer has already submitted permits for it to move to port, quickly we look for where the stack, if it's in deep stack or anything, the restacker is used to break stack for to move that container.
Now, when you say break stack, what does it mean? Because I'm not sure my other colleagues. Well, when you say break stack.
So break stack is when maybe the containers have been packed at a particular end, and then the very container that we're looking for is underneath, is down there. The containers at the top has to be taken off of it so that we can load the one below. So that is the stack.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Please, is it the same as break bulk?
No, he's talking about breaking a stack.
Okay.
So you see this thing? You see this picture here?
Okay, yes.
Have you seen the picture we have here?
The right side, yes, sir.
Okay, so you see that the containers are packed on each other. Okay. If there's a container which is underneath, right, below, and we want to remove it, this is called a stack. Okay. So we have to break the stack and remove the container. Do you get it now?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Sammy, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
So after the stack has been broken and then the container identified and loaded on an available track, then the track has to approach the out gate. So we have the in gate and the out gate. So it approaches the out gate, and then that is where we write a waybill, or we enter it into the system and we issue a waybill to the driver, as well as MPS also has, if it's approaching MPS, they have a terminal operating system. So we create appointments with the driver details and everything, so that because their system is automated, so that the moment it leaves our end, it gets to the appointment, there is no checks or anything. The system is able to capture the details and then compare it to the container on the track, and then even the track itself. It has a way of doing it. So they have a system in place that does it. So the moment appointment is created, it gets to that end, then quickly the gate is open for them to enter. So I think the logistics process are assuming from my end. Okay.
All right. So let's now having gotten this understanding, we know what logistics is. It broadly refers to the process of coordinating and moving resources. Take note of these two words: coordinating and moving resources. Then the resources could be people, materials, it could be inventory, it could be equipment, and it moves it from one location to the storage at the desired destination. Now, when we want to procure raw materials, there will be movement, okay, of resources. When we are converting the raw materials to finished goods, there will be movement of resources as well. And then when as well there is the finished goods itself is being transported to the distributors, okay, there will be a movement. The distributors will also move these materials to the end of the consumer. There will be what? Movement. So we are moving people, materials, we are moving inventories and equipment from one location to the other. And the term logistics originated in the military, referring to the movement of equipment and supplies to troops in the field. So let's take note of that. So these are the logistics components. There's the inbound, there's the outbound transportation, inbound transportation, that is the transportation coming, to the organization, all right, coming from outside into the organization. We say inbound. It could be, raw materials being brought from the suppliers to our company or our organization. That is an inbound. And we have the outbound when we are done with processing the raw materials into finished goods. That transportation that goes from the organization to a different, destination. We have fleet management where goes into management of fleets. Like if you go to Tor, for instance, where you see fleets there that moves the liquid bulk or the petroleum or gas from one stage to the other, from one destination to the other, in giving the filling stations what stock. They are all part of fleet management. So some organizations, they have a fleet of vehicles that they manage. That's all they do. That is also part of what? Logistics management, okay? So you could pick a project topic in inbound transportation or outbound transportation or fleet management. There's also the warehousing, where products that or stocks that have been received that we don't have immediate use of it for it, we stock those materials, stocks or inventory, and then manage the stock for some time till it is issued out to be used for the purpose for which, it was meant for. So we do warehousing, and warehousing is a big deal when it comes to what? Logistics management, just as fleet management. And then we have the materials handling. The materials handling, handling materials. And here we are talking about material equipment, okay? And so when you go to the ECG, they had some big machines, vehicles, specialized vehicles that they use for the field. There are some they can just stand and then project the beam so that their staff can just climb the beam and do something, okay? They have some specialized vehicles they've been using for that. I was told that you also had some running vehicle that have all the equipment in, then when there's a fault, you can just drive there and then something, and the fault will be known. I'm not sure about that, Frank.
Yes, it is true. It is true. That is the cable test van. It is called cable test van.
Cable test van, okay.
Yeah, cable test van. It is fitted with, yes, it can be able to detect where the fault is underneath the ground.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. So table test what? Van, okay. It's used for that. So these are, what do you call it? Material handling what? Equipment. In the port, they have various types of equipment. They have the restackers, they have the forklift, different tonnage, tons that is able to handle and they have some specialized, material handlers that they use at the port. Where you come to the mines, they also have very big trucks, okay, that they use in doing. Some of the trucks is able to go underneath the earth. They're able to drive in there to, and then some of the machines are able to go there, like the excavators. They go down to dig in there. We're told those times that there's a whole community where you go underneath, okay, when Anglo Gold Ashanti, used to mine, where people go to that depth of in excess of 100 feet and all that. The people go there, okay, and they'll be working there. They use specialized machines. There are some lifts that they use. These are all material handling equipment, okay? These lifts are they're able to bring the gold, up, to the earth. Let me give you a typical example so that you will appreciate this. I'll give you a typical example of the material handling equipment. We have inventory management and order fulfillment, and then demand planning. These are the components of logistics. So if we talk about inbound transportation, like I said, if we have vessels that are bringing containers to the port, we classify that as inbound transportation. If we have vehicles that are bringing containers to Amaris terminal, for instance, in Ghana, which is an export terminal, once they receive the vehicles that bring the containers, we classify those vehicles as what that process as what inbound transportation. Inbound transportation. So let's take note of that. For electricity, any vehicle that brings any material that is needed for them to deliver their service, it's an inbound transportation. And for the mines, any vehicle that is meant to bring something that will help in the production of the gold and the other minerals, we classify that as inbound transportation. Okay, so that is inbound transportation. Then we have the outbound, this one going out of the organization. Most times it's about finished product. Finished product, okay? Most times that is it. That is what it's all about, finished product. The organization is transporting that outside. Most times it's to the distributors or to the customers. We call that an outbound transportation. Then we have the fleet management, which I've spoken about, that involve the management of a whole fleet of vehicles. It could be tankers. It could be that takes maybe liquid bulk. It could be other fleet of vehicles that take loose bulk, like grains or rice or something. These are all part of what logistics. So managing these fleets, helps the organization to be able to meet its objective. So some businesses does only fleet management as part of their logistics activities. And this is part of the component of logistics. Then we have the warehouse management. This is a typical warehouse management, maybe predominantly with carton products, okay? Products that are put in cartons and where you use the shelves, okay, for as part of the management. In some jurisdictions, they use automated system. If you go to Swiss port at the airport, you will see a fully automated, warehouse management system, which is just amazing. The lead time for somebody to retrieve the cargo, it's very minimal, and there's that high efficiency because all these things are programmed with the system, and they are all electronic in nature. Okay, so this is an example of a warehouse system. An organization could have its own warehouse system or warehouse management system or its own warehouse. It could also procure the services of an outsourced warehouse somewhere, which that is going to manage the inventory for the organization. Whichever strategy you want to use works. And we have the material handling. I showed you a video where we had some of the examples, okay? But these are all when you go to a typical warehouse where they move materials. In fact, there are some of the warehouses that, like for liquid bulk, for instance, like petroleum, you will not see this equipment. It rather uses pipes to pipe this thing into a whole tank, a very big tank. So the petroleum that is being warehoused, you don't have human beings, going there. The liquid is just in there. If it is gas, it is just in there, okay, part of the liquid bulk. And they are able, when they are discharging, they have a way of discharging it also through that same pipe, okay? Then it goes to the vehicle and then they dispatch it. So for liquid bulk, you will not have, this one we are talking about, the normal conventional bulk, which is normal, like a steel bulk, or we are even not talking about a loose bulk, like the brick bulk. You're having the rice and then the other product that are grains in nature. That is not what we are talking about. They also have their own method of warehousing. Of course, this is right. You see them, it comes in a form of loose cargo, and then they, as it were, put it in sacks, and then they break it and then put it into a sack. And that's what they call the brick bulk. They put it in a sack, and then they then put it or load it on a vehicle so that they discharge. So if you go to a warehouse that has that kind of a product, you rather see sacks being, loaded or at the warehouse, okay, rather than seeing something like this. You wouldn't see anything like this. You see a different form of arrangement in the warehouse. So the warehouse architecture is a factor, but it is the type of product that determines how the warehouse is structured. So take note of that. So then we have inventory management, which is also another part of the component of logistics. And these are all huge aspects or concepts that are activities within the logistics operation, which should be taken seriously. Inventory management is a big deal. And then we have the order fulfillment, where a customer places an order and there's an order fulfillment kind of strategy. And we are saying that specifically an enterprise will focus on two aspects in the execution of the order fulfillment process. One of the various sub-processes in this process and the related activities included in the sub-process. So if we go to receipt, for instance, we want to know what goes into receipt, okay? What are the sub-components that are involved in receiving what product, okay? And then when we are picking it, we want to know. So if you look at receive, we say processes, pick, then pack, then warehouse, and then ship in that order. So the general steps in order fulfillment is to accept an order, to check an order execution, place outbound orders, and execute outbound orders, and then print invoices. All right. So that is the general process of execution. Then we have demand planning, okay, which is also part of it. And demand planning is a big deal. Now, today we are using very complicated softwares, modeling to do demand planning. Just we are able to know customers' tastes and preferences, their ordering trend, and then decide how to plan for demand. We are doing demand planning because the kind of system we are operating now, we can project for demand, forecast for it, and then produce to that kind of stock. Now, there's another school of thought that produces to order. That is where people do just in time, and some other organization wait for orders to be given before or the place before they even start ordering for their raw materials. In other words, it is the order that has been placed that triggers the kind of raw materials that should be ordered, in even the quantity. In other jurisdiction, it is not like that. But there are other products that you cannot stock. So you might want to do demand just in time. There are other ones that you can stock. So you want to do demand planning and then have it. For instance, if you want to place an order in the port, if you want to buy a tugboat, tugboats are boats that actually help. In fact, they are very strong, I mean, boats. They try actually bring the vessel, that big vessel, I mean, in. Sometimes 30,000 tonner or 50,000 tonner, tons of, they bring these vessels in. And they are very small, but very, very powerful. Now, if you want to buy a tugboat, tugboats are not produced and then stocked. They are, I mean, you buy it based on the order. So that one is based on what? What we call the pool system. It is the customer that places the order before it is produced. If you want to buy an aircraft and it's a new aircraft, you cannot go to town and say, I want this. There are some even vehicles that you can only place order. Another example is the cranes. The cranes you see at the port, you don't buy them. Even to some extent, the rich stackers, they don't produce and then put them there. You would have to order. And sometimes it takes 6 months and order. And because some of these people, they do what we call agile supply chain, which has a component of, I mean, decoupling and postponement. They do some parts and then postpone the completion. They leave it. So if you want to buy, be able to assemble it very fast because there are some parts that have been already been produced and been waiting for the next stage to happen. So customer demand planning, it's very, very key. And it involves modeling, forecasting, demand planning, and the demand planning takes into consideration whether the supplier has the raw materials or not. So that is also another thing that we need to. So in a nutshell, what we are saying is that logistics equals to material management plus distribution. I don't know. Can you see this? Are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Do you agree with this? Logistics is equal to material management plus distribution.
Yes, please.
If you agree, why? I need a response, please.
Oh, okay. So I think from what I understand by the materials management, I mean, for example, from my end, like this, I'll use the container as an example. I mean, there are containers that come in empty, and then they come in and stuff it in there. I believe that the material management would involve anything that has to do with the container handling, maybe the movement of it, and then while still in the yard or in the space where it's still in storage. So during that process where things are being stuffed in it, and then usage of various machines and everything, just to ensure that maybe the container is stuffed with whatever item that there is. And then the distribution has to do with when it has to be delivered to whether the shipper or maybe to the port. And it would require maybe some movement, since logistics has to also do with the wheel part of the supply chain. So the distribution bit of it also fits in. So Doc, that's what I understand by it.
Oh, that's fine. That's good. I appreciate that. Who else? Who else is Albert now? Frank, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I think the logistics is equal to materials management plus distribution. Yes. When you take materials management, that is the inventory, keeping of inventory, materials, and then it's in the warehouse, and then the distribution aspect, where the transportation, the fleet, where you are sending the materials outbound, you are sending them outside the organization. I think this is a 20th century knowledge of the logistics. For me, that's how I see it. But currently, logistics go beyond this.
Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, who else?
It's raining at my place, so I barely hear things clear.
But we can hear you.
I cannot hear you very clear.
Wow. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. So, so logistics is material management plus distribution. All they are saying is that logistics carries what? The inventory. And the inventory, the human being is part of it. Any other one? Let's look at the definition. Let me take you there. This is very exciting. It says that logistics is more broadly refers to the process of coordinating and moving resources. Have you seen it? The resources are made up of what? So use resources to represent what? Materials, okay, management. Are we there?
Yeah.
Okay, moving resources. So moving resources. So the movement is the distribution. Do you agree? You agree? The movement is the distribution.
Yes.
Okay. So when they say material management plus distribution, that's what it means. And we are seeing supply chain. Now look at supply chain. Now you see what I said initially. Supply chain. They introduce supplier and customer in between, and then logistics in between. Have you seen it? So logistics does everything that handles everything that has to do with the organization. And supply chain brings the customer and the supplier in. Have you seen it? You get the whole thing?
Yes, please.
Because currently logistics can deliver the product to the customer. But logistics is not too concerned about whether the customer will do a repeat buying or is not interested. All right? That has to do with the marketers. So most times in the organization, these functions were operating independently, customers, logistics. So what supply chain did was to combine all the activities to ensure that the company generates value, and then customers are satisfied. Stakeholders are also what? Satisfied. These stakeholders are the internal stakeholders that are workers, and then management, and then the external stakeholders that had to do with what? The shareholders, the government, and even the community. That is the essence of supply chain. And we are saying that there are different definitions that are associated with logistics and supply chain. They give it different name. Among the many different names can be physical distribution, business logistics. These names are given to these concepts, okay? Okay, so this is the structure of logistics for fast movement consumer goods, for instance. So you have the raw materials here, you have production, assembling, this packing and finish. This actually at the heart of what? Logistics. So this is what you see. Okay, so this is the logistics we talked about. So if you look at the whole process, have you seen the suppliers, logistics, customers? The same thing here, okay? And what you have here, this key is what? Physical outbound, and then process and information. This is it, how they interact, and then the physical inbound reverse logistics. So this is how it also, works. This is demand side downstream outbound, and supply side upstream inbound. Okay, that's how it works. Okay, now we have talked about different definitions of logistics. I'm not going to bore down you on that, but there are different disciplines and different organizations. Logistics and transport have its own definition. They define it as the positioning of resources at the right time, right place, at the right cost, at the right quality. That's what they define it to be. Okay. Then we have the origin of logistics. We said that you heard that in the video. It comes from the French word logistique, meaning to lodge, and the word English dictionary in the 19th century as logistics. Movement plus supply of troops plus equipment. Movement plus supply of troops plus equipment. And the modern organization of movement, lodging, plus supplying troops and equipment. So the modern one, that's how they have defined what logistics is. And the supplying of troops plus the equipment is what we call the materials management. And logistics evolution, there was this French Revolution War. And we say that if you want to look at logistics evolution, there was the French Revolution War that came to the Napoleonic era, where the French had some fight with Europe, okay? And that degenerated to now the technique of moving and quatrain. And quatrain, this means that these soldiers that were on the forefront of the war, they had to be catered for, they had to be housed. Okay, so we say quatrain armies, we have to house them. So this whole thing about logistics is rooted seriously in the militaries. We say military logistics, NATO adopted, said the science of planning and carrying out the movement and maintenance of what forces. So military have a significant need of logistics solution. Maintaining one supply lines is a crucial element of military strategy. So we make sure that we don't run out of the tools that we need to fight the enemy. And just imagine that we are at the war front and then our bombs, the bombs that we've been using or the bullets that we've been using, we run out of that. That is going to be a problem. So you need a strategy to make sure that these people are always given enough resource or tools to be able to work. We said the U.S. Army's force have the logistical capacity to accurately supply troops with the items necessary at the precise movement they are needed. So for U.S., I remember if you watch the film 24 Hours, that Jack Bauer, that film, you realize that there were instances that if there is an emergency, they're able to fly a chopper within the minimum time, able to address something. For instance, if somebody, a soldier gets hurt, all right, and there's an emergency, within the next 2-3 minutes, there's a chopper. What is there? And the chopper has an emergency medical treatment where they can treat that person and save that person's life. That is how the U.S. have evolved to be. And in our country, it's a different matter. I think that if you try that one, you have a problem. So let's look at the 4 subdivisions of logistics. We have the military. We have the military where we say design and integration of all aspects of support for operational capabilities of the military force and their equipment to ensure readiness and reliability and efficiency. So that is from the military perspective, and the business, that is what we do. We said that part of supply chain process. Now you see how they define logistics. That part of supply chain process that plans, implements, and controls the efficient, effective flow and storage of goods, services, and related information remember, related information from the point of use, consumption, in order to meet customer requirements. So that is the business sense. For the military sense, that's how it looks. And for events could be any activity. It could be, those who do event management. So those who are doing event management need, logistics, knowledge. They need that. So the network of activities, facilities, and personnel required to organize, schedule, and deploy the resources for an event to take place and to efficiently withdraw after the event probably is over. You get it? So for events, so those who do event management, most of them some of them by nature, maybe been following other people and then they get used to it. But every serious event management company, that understands the business well, might have taken a course in logistics, because everything about event management is logistics. Everything. is logistics. Then we have service, the acquisition, scheduling, and management of facilities. So service like the hospitals. Hospitals thrive seriously on logistics, okay? Management of facilities, assets, personnel, and materials to support and sustain a service operations and business. All of these guys are seriously into logistics. Please go ahead, yeah?
With the definition of logistics, that's the business aspect of it, can we say logistics and supply chain are Siamese twins?
They are what? Siamese twins?
Yes. Because they are saying that part of the supply chain process.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So it's a part of the supply chain process.
That's it.
You get it?
Yes,
it's a part of the supply chain process. And that's what I wanted to reinforce. That's the point I wanted you to drive home with.
Yes.
Because it's part of it. But watch, it said it's part of that supply chain process that plans, implements, and controls the efficient, effective flow and storage of goods, services, and related information from the point of use. It didn't say from the point of sourcing. You get it? From the point of sourcing, bring the supplier in. It said that from the point of use / consumption in order to meet customer requirements.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So that shows the disparity, the difference.
That shows the difference, exactly. That shows the difference, exactly. So that is just about it for this part. I don't know whether we have any question, but this is actually, so I'm going to share some questions with you in our next lecture, how we will solve the question, okay? But this topic, to tell you, is very interesting. I don't know whether you see that. But you may not have seen logistics from this perspective, but that's what it is anyway. So I want your views. So I would like to pause here. The next section is going to be inventory management.